So with that, let's talk a little bit about, practice that drill, practice our 8 cuts, the footwork drills we did before. I now want to spend kind of the next 15 minutes or so talking about line of attack and some radial steps, right? One of the feedback I got was, can we talk about kind of angled steps versus the linear steps that we do in the beginning of the class? Absolutely, right? So we are not confined to a strip, and even if we are, you still have angles you can walk at, right? I don't have to go forward and back. If you look at our compass rose, we have 8 directions on there in our logo. That's intentional, right? And everyone uses that. It's a universal symbol for the directions of movement, right? I can move forward and back. I can move laterally left to right. I can move diagonally up and back in either direction, right? How do I do that with footwork? So the way I think about it is, I got a little red dot in here on the floor. Didn't even realize that was there. So I don't know if you guys can see it, 'cause it's our mark. So middle guard, nice, simple. I've got a dot in the middle of the floor. The way I like to talk about it is, picture a clock face around your body with 12 o'clock up there, 6 o'clock back there, 9, 3, you kind of get the gist, right? So I want to move in all 8 directions. So forward and back, easy. We do that all the time. I can step forward with my lead foot. I can step back and maintain my hip alignment. I can step forward with my back foot, or forward with my front, or backward with my front foot. Change my hip orientation going forward and back. Linear, easy. We walk linearly all the time, right? Side to side. If I want to go off to 3 o'clock, off to my right. If I step out, look how much, keep in mind, you're opening yourself up. You have to close when you do that. Back to guard. Step with my back foot. Close. Now I may close back. I may step and close in. Really depends on what you want to do with your opponent. Since we're stepping laterally, I'm going to close back because I want my lead foot to really dictate the positioning on that clock face, right? So forward, backwards, right, left. Simple, right? Diagonally up and back. We'll talk about the cross steps in a second. Diagonally up and back. Back foot. Close your line. Now, I don't want to do this because that's silly, because I'll be totally out of balance and completely with my back to my opponent. So if I'm going up to the right and I'm right foot forward, so I'm going in the direction of my lead foot, I have to step with that lead foot first and close my back foot. If I'm going to the opposite side, can I step with my lead foot? Sure, but look what happens. I'm putting my back to my opponent. Don't really want to do that, right? So I want to step with that back foot and close. Backwards, same thing. I don't want to cross back, so I'll step back with the lead foot, back with the close foot. So 8 movements. Forward, back, right, left, diagonally left, back, diagonally right, backwards left, backwards right. So why do I go at an angle? Well, the picture I painted before, where my opponent is in high guard across from me, I'm in middle guard, right? I have the center line, right? My blade is out and it is in my opponent's face. There is a line that connects me to my opponent. It's a center line. It's the line of attack. When my blade is out, right, and they decide to walk forward and not move my blade, they're going to run into my blade, right? I have the line of attack. There's 2 things they can do. They can control that line via a blade action or via a body action, some action, right? They can step at an angle. So if I'm in high guard, picture the opponent across from me, and I step forward, I'm going to get stunk run through, right? So I want to create a new center line by stepping out. My opponent is still here, right? Let their blade be where it is, right? Strike. Now I may close the line to strike. There's a lot of things you can do to make sure you don't get hit from your opponent, because again, that's the most important thing, right? What are we saying now? Don't get hit. Hit your opponent. Don't get hit back. So that means parry or move, strike, and close and get out, right? So don't get hit, hit your opponent, and don't get hit back. Let me make that into a t-shirt, I think. Anyway, so center line, right? I'm going to step out to my left. So if I'm in high guard against my opponent, they're in center line. I want to strike out to their side. I may have to step over to strike. I may have to step out to strike, right? I don't always want to do that. I probably don't ever want to do that as a simple action of just my footwork, right? I usually want to do that in conjunction of something where my blade closes and covers a line. Because if my opponent's in middle guard and I just want to step over, I want to put my blade between me and my opponent's blade, right? So I want to close that line. If I stay in middle guard and all I do is just kind of move off and at an angle to my opponent, well, I'm leaving open this entire side of my body to my opponent's blade, which is right there, right? So every time you move, you want to move again with intention, and you got to move with awareness of where my opponent's blade is. So I might come in and then strike, but I might strike in a way that keeps me guarded as I do. And again, just because your opponent's head might be your desired target, if their hands are there and you perform a good solid movement to strike to their hands or their arms, great. Again, you know, it doesn't matter the rule system you're in or the scenario or the application of the techniques, as long as you perform them properly, they're all valid actions, right? So I'm in high guard. I want to close the line of attack, get into my opponent's line. I can do that just by walking. I said that, right? Closing the line. I can also do that by engaging my opponent's blade. So if my opponent's blade is in front of me, I can engage with it, and I'll get one of the guys here next week, I hope, and we'll do some partner drills where we're actually kind of playing with intention. But if someone's up in middle guard, I'll take middle guard back with them, and I'll put a little pressure on their blade, right? Try to learn their intention. I've now got a connection point to my opponent. I'm touching the same object they're touching, so I now can start to read their intention, right? I can read when they're going to put more pressure, when they're going to try to flick my blade away to make a strike. I can feel that, right? They're giving me an opportunity to read their mind and their body language. I'm going to do it. I'm going to take it, right? So I can engage their blade, move it. I can displace their blade to create a center line. I could circularly envelop their blade to create the center line. I could move their blade dramatically off, so I can beat their blade, kind of smack their blade off to the side, right? I can't do anything in isolation, though. Everything's got to be some combination of movements. It's got to be a combination of a beat, a foot, and a counter strike, right? It's got to be a combination of engage, flick, strike. But it's got to be with a movement, and it's got to be a little offline. Kind of the first half of the equation, right? You've got to get in, not get hit, but then you got to get out and not get hit back, right? So I mentioned this on Tuesday. So not only do I want to step out, create that new center line, right, the new line of attack, but when I'm done, I want to get out far enough where my opponent can't counterattack me back, right? Do I want to turn around and run away? Maybe, right? If I have an opportunity to, and I'm safe that way, cool. But essentially, I want to be able to strike, hit, back out, and close the line. I always want to make sure that I'm covered so that their natural response, whether it's a reflex action or whether it's an intentional counterattack, doesn't hit me, right? Simple as possible. So, where are we going to go from there? I don't know. Let's see. So, talked about high blocks. We talked about guards coming in. We talked about foot alignment again. We covered quite a bit. What I would say is we're going to do some more push-ups and sit-ups before we close out. You got a lot to practice from this one alone. I'm going to cut up a few of these so we can actually do those isolated footwork drills. Do them, right? So advance. If you have a saber in your hand, great. Advance, retreat, advance, retreat. I talked about this last time, I think. I always kind of bring it up, right? We naturally step forward in bigger strides than we do stepping back. You might have to take a bigger intentional retreat in order to move yourself forward. Cool, right? But practice that. If you don't practice it, you will never do it when you're planning, when you're fighting, because again, once we're in measure to each other, right? Once we're inside 8 feet of each other, which if you look at the stripes on the floor here are 2 of these stripes, that's pretty close. If I line up and foot on my toes on one stripe and my opponent's toes 2 stripes away, we're close. We're in measure, right? 3 stripes, 1 step in, we can hit each other. So while I can think a little bit at this distance, Once I'm here, it's all actions. It's all muscle memory. So practice your footwork. Practice your cuts with your footwork. Single cut, retreating cut. Advance, retreat, advance, retreat. Horizontal, advance, retreat, advance, retreat. Upward, advance, retreat. Mix them up. Advance, retreat, right? Let's close on that. I like that one. I haven't done that in a while. So right foot forward, left foot back, middle guard. We're going to step forward and cut down. Rotate the blades, step back and cut up. Step forward and cut down. Cut up is the back, right? We're going to do 10 of those together, and we're going to switch sides. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Switch your feet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's do some push-ups.